In the bustling streets of ancient Capernaum, the city came alive with the sounds of merchants calling their wares, children laughing, and animals braying as people hurried along their daily routines. Yet amid this vibrant tapestry, a woman moved hesitantly along the edge of the crowd. Her presence was almost a whisper, careful and unobtrusive, as if she hoped the world would not notice her. For 12 long years, she had suffered, plagued by a relentless flow of blood, a condition that brought more than physical weakness. According to the traditions of her people, she was considered ritually unclean, a status that isolated her from society, her family, her friends, and her place of worship. Every day was heavy with loneliness, shame, and exhausted hope. She had heard the whispers about Jesus, the teacher and healer from Nazareth, whose words carried the power to calm storms, and whose touch restored the lame and blind. People spoke of miracles, of lives turned from despair to joy, wounds healed and dignity restored. Each story was like a candle in her darkness, a fragile hope that flickered despite her weary skepticism. She had spent all that she had on doctors and cures that had only left her poorer and weaker, disappointment settling over her like dust. Yet when she heard that Jesus was passing nearby, something stirred within her, a faint, stubborn ember of faith refusing to be snuffed out. Today, as she watched the crowd press about him, she felt the swell of desperation rise again. People surrounded Jesus on every side, voices rising in excitement, hands reaching out in expectation. The synagogue ruler, Jairus, had fallen at Jesus' feet, pleading for his dying daughter. The crowd surged forward as Jesus moved toward Jairus' house, but the woman saw her chance. Swaddled in her shawl, barely noticed, she slipped closer through the throng, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She repeated to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be healed." It was a simple, silent prayer, carried not on grand declarations, but trembling hope. The challenge seemed insurmountable. Every brush against another person risked scorn or worse if they realized her condition. But something about Jesus gave her the courage to defy every fear, every social boundary that had been built, stone by stone, around her for more than a decade. Pushing past bodies, she extended her hand, fingers stretching from beneath her garment, until they finally brushed the hem of his cloak. In that instant, something ineffable happened. She felt the change, a warmth, a rushing sense of wholeness washing through her body after years of pain and fatigue. Her strength returned, the source of her suffering dried instantly. Relief, astonishment, and gratitude flooded her soul. She stood, still hidden in the crowd, almost unable to process the miracle she had dared to believe was possible. But Jesus, feeling the touch of faith among the jostling masses, suddenly stopped. He turned to look about, his voice rising above the crowd. "Who touched me?" His disciples, incredulous, replied, "You see the people crowding against you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" They saw only chaos and commotion, the press of bodies against their teacher. But Jesus' eyes searched for the one whose touch had drawn power from him, not casual contact, but desperate, believing need. Aware she could not remain hidden, the woman stepped forward, trembling with fear. She had spent years shrinking away from notice, accustomed to judgment and rejection. Now she stood before everyone, ready to confess the truth, not knowing how this revered teacher would respond. Would he rebuke her for her boldness, for daring to make him unclean in front of all these witnesses? Yet she knelt, and with a voice cracking with emotion, told him the whole story, her years of suffering, her fruitless journey from healer to healer, her exhaustion, her final hope. And she finished with the confession, "I touched your clothes, and I was immediately healed." Silence rippled through the crowd as they watched, curiosity and respect mingling on their faces. But Jesus did not rebuke her, nor did he shrink from her. Instead, his gaze was gentle, kind, and full of compassion. His words were like balm to a soul battered by years of isolation and shame. "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." The word daughter wrapped around her like a long-lost embrace, restoring not just her health, but her dignity and place in the community. In front of all, Jesus returned her identity, her worth, and her hope. In that encounter, so simple yet so powerful, the woman's faith bridged the gap between desperation and healing. She was not invisible to Jesus. Her timid, silent faith spoke louder than any cry. Jesus' response revealed a profound truth. He did not merely heal bodies, but reached into broken lives to restore wholeness, belonging, and peace. He saw her, not as a problem to be fixed, but as a beloved daughter worthy of mercy and restoration. The crowd, having witnessed this exchange, silently marveled at the compassion and authority of Jesus. Some may have remembered their own hidden wounds and wondered if such a healing could be theirs too. Others would whisper the story in homes and gatherings for years to come. The woman, freed from her suffering, walked away with her head held high, her body strong, and her spirit renewed. She was no longer defined by her past affliction, but by the faith that led her to reach out, and the mercy that answered her in return. The story of Jesus and the woman with the issue of blood endures far beyond that single moment in Capernaum. It is a testament to the power of faith, the courage to hope when all hope seems lost, and the compassion that meets us at our point of greatest need. It reminds all who hear it that no person is beyond notice, and no suffering is too hidden to be healed. In every age, this story whispers the truth. Reach out in faith, and you will find that grace is waiting.